right, you guys, here we go. We're gonna do 9-2B notes today, and then I think this will probably be all we have time for today. So, yesterday we talked about how to find the answers to these equations. So these are quadratic equations, which means the biggest exponent is a 2. So we're just gonna kind of review like what we did yesterday. The first thing you need to do with these equations, and you need to pay attention to see what your first coefficient is. This one's a 1, which makes these a lot easier. So your first number on the top will be -8, and the number on the bottom will be that middle or that B number, which is -2. So we're looking for something that multiplies to give me -8, but adds to give me -2. Opposite of that. Yep, -4 and 2. You look at your equation, and if the equation has x's in it, guys, put your Chromebooks away. We don't need them. If your equation has x's in them, you use an x. So I'm taking x, and I'm going to subtract 4 for my first factor, and I'm taking x, and I'm adding 2 for my second factor. So that's where we had stopped previously. But now we can actually set those equal to 0 and solve them. So when you have them like this, they're pretty easy because it's just the opposite of whatever you got. So this would be a +4, x equals 4. And the other one would be -2. When you solve this, you subtract 2 from both sides, so you get x equals -2. So at this point, we do know how to find the solutions. These are actually the x-intercepts of the graph if you were to graph this, which means you'd go on your x-axis and you'd make a point at 4 and you'd make a point at -2, and that's what we're about ready to do. So we're on step 3. I think I have a better picture of it right here. Find the x-coordinates of the vertex. So x can be found in 2 different ways. You could find the axis of symmetry by doing the opposite of b over 2a. I'm going to write down our equation back up here since that's on the other page for me, but you guys should still see this at the top of your paper. Here's our equation. I'm wanting to do the opposite of b. Remember, this is a, this is b, this is c. So that'd be 2 divided by, a is 1, so 2 times 1 is just 2. So that equals 1. So the vertex, the first point in my vertex is 1. That's our axis of symmetry, is x equals 1. So I'm going to go on my graph. Mine's so small, it's going to be hard to see, but at x equals 1, that's where I'm drawing my little dotted line. That's my axis of symmetry. The other way you can find the x is finding the average of your x-intercepts. We just got our answers, which were 4 and -2. So if you take 4 plus -2, and you find the average of it, so you have to divide it by 2 because there's 2 terms, you also get 2 divided by 2, which is 1. This is just another way to find your x if you don't like to do the opposite of b over 2a, whichever way you prefer. When you have your x, now you need to find your y. So you're going to take that 1 and you're going to plug it back into the original equation and see what y equals. So we know we're going to do 1 squared, which is 1 times 1, so that's 1. -2 times 1 is -2, and then you still have a -8. So 1 minus 2 minus 8. What is that? -9. So our vertex is the point 1, -9. We're going to plot that point on our graph. So I'm going to go over 1. This is so hard to see, but I think it's right here. The other points that we're going to graph are those x-intercepts that we got on step 2. We got x equals 4, so I'm going to go on my x-axis to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to make a point. And the other one was -2. All you need is 3 points, you guys. So now that we have those, that's your parabola. You can also graph your y-intercept if you would like. Your y-intercept is whatever c is, so it'd be 0, and your c is -8. So you should have a point at 0, -8. And then you can also graph the reflection of that. I'm trying the best on mine because it's so small, I can barely see it. So 0, -8 is the y-intercept. And then you can graph the reflection of that as well. So you always have that option to graph too. We're going to do another one. Here's the try it question. They don't like make you show all the work that you had to on the last one. So we're just going to go ahead and start by doing the puzzle, the X factor method. Since the first number on this one is not 1, you have to do a little bit extra. So you need to take A times C. So 2 times -6. Oh, you can, yeah. You can either do it, you can do it either way. You'll get the same exact thing. If you didn't notice, you factor out a 2, and you did it the other way, you'd get the same exact answer. So x squared plus 2x minus 3. So you can factor out a 2, like she said. And if you want to do that, that makes your problem a lot easier because now your x is 1. So the top number would be -3, and the bottom number would be 2. Something that multiplies to give me -3, but adds to give me 2. Nope. There we go. Yeah, you're probably doing the other one. Okay, since x is 1, all we have to do is make our little factors. We're going to keep 2 out front because we factored it out. You can't just forget about the 2. And since the letter we're using in this equation is x, it would be x plus 3 and x minus 1 as our little factors. You're allowed to set those equal to 0. The only time this front number matters or your greatest common factor matters is if there's an x in it. Since 2 does not have an x there, you don't have to do anything with that. You don't have to set it equal to 0. What you can do is set x plus 3 equal to 0 and solve, which would be x equals -3. That's one of your x-intercepts. Then you have x minus 1 as your other factor. You set that equal to 0, which gives you x equals 1. So that's your other x-intercept. What this means is our parabola crosses the x-axis twice. You want to find the axis of symmetry. To find your vertex, you would do the opposite of B. B is 4, so what's the opposite of 4? And then over to A, which is 2 times 2, which is 4. So the axis of symmetry is going to be at x equals -1. So we're going to find -1. I'm going to try my very best here, but that's the average. That's the other way we just learned. But yes, you can do that too. Yeah, you can take -3 plus 1 divided by 2. Okay, so we have the x of our vertex. Now we need the y of our vertex. So I'm going to plug that in to the original equation, not the one that I factored out of 2. I'm going to plug it into the original. 2 times -1 squared plus 4 times -1 minus 6. You can type that right into your calculator. And what would you get for your y? Yes. When you plug that in your calculator and you hit equals, you get -8. So our vertex is -1, -8. We're going to plot that point right now. -1. I think -8's right here. I don't know. So small. Then you're going to plot those two x's. So I've got an x at -3. Here's -1, -2, -3. I'm going to make a point there. And I'm also going to make a point at 1. You can stop there, but you can also plot your y-intercept, which would be this number right here, 0, -6. I think that's this. And you can do the reflection from that as well. Anyway, those are all the points we need. And this is our parabola. Okay, so now we're going to be kind of doing a little bit opposite because they give you the graph. On example B, how can you write the factored form of the equation when they give you the graph? So the first thing it says is to find the x-intercept. So figure out where it crosses the x-axis. First place it crosses is at -5. And then the other place they cross is at 1. That's correct. Okay. Then they give you this equation right here. It's like a, then parentheses x minus p, and then the other parentheses x minus q equals 0. You substitute your x-intercepts, -5 and 1, for p and for q. So we're going to start by doing that. A. We'll start with an A. We'll have an x and a minus sign, and then we would choose our first x-intercept, which just so happens to be a negative as well. So it's two negatives right next to each other. And then you would have another x, and then you would subtract, because that's what the equation says to do. And then our other number is a 1, and we'd set that equal to 0. We're going to simplify that because two negatives make a positive. So this turns into x plus 5, and x minus 1 equals 0. Okay, so I'm going to actually just write it down here. I know I have what it says, but it says, write the function in factored form, use a third point to solve for a. We need to know what this first number is, so we're going to use this vertex right here. The point of the vertex is -2, -9. We can't use our x-intercepts. We have to use a third point. So we're going to use this point, and we're going to use this for x and this for y. So instead of having x and all of that, we're going to exchange that for our x in this point. So a, instead of x, we're going to use the -2 from this point, plus 5. Same x as before, -2, minus 1. And instead of setting it equal to 0, we're going to use our y, which is -9. We are going to simplify that. We have a. What's -2 plus 5? What's -2 minus 1? We can simplify this even farther because we know what -3 times +3 is. That's -9. And if I would want to get a all by itself, what would I have to do to move the -9 over? Right now we're multiplying, so the opposite of multiplying is to divide. And it's negative divided by -9. So we know that a equals 1. So now it's going to be in factored form. We're going to use this, and instead of a, we're going to put 1. 1 times x plus 5 times x minus 1 And that's it. You can say f of x or y equals. We're going to do another one like that, and then we'll be done for today. I don't know what time it is. Okay, we're going to do this try it one. First thing you need to do is find your x-intercept. So look at your graph, figure out where it crosses your x-axis, and write those numbers down. It would be at 3 and 9. We're going to replace P and Q with those numbers. So we're going to start right here, A, and then x minus 3, x minus 9 equals 0. We need to figure out what our vertex is. 6. Is it -8 or -9? We're going to use this point. This will be our x. This will be our y, and we're going to solve. So instead of writing x, we're now going to replace x with 6. And instead of 0, we're going to use that -9. And now we're going to solve for a. What is 6 minus 3? Oh, that was bad. This is a 3. Negative. This will be -3. 6 minus 9 is -3. This is like the exact same thing we just did. Different problem, right? Weird. Okay, anyway, 3 times -3 is -9. We're doing the exact same thing we did last time. -9 divided by -9 is what? So A equals 1. Now we're going to go back to our original right here, the factored form, and instead of A, we're going to write 1. You could say f of x equals, and you're done. And technically, you don't even have to put the 1 there. If it's a 1, it doesn't change anything. So you could leave the 1 off, but if it's not a 1, it does have to go there. Those are our notes for today. That's all.